One more time.
Hi champs, well done tonight. Excellent participation. Everyone contributed well, and just a really excellent job at week 3 of participation. Brilliant, just really good. So just a quick review of what we did. First hour we reviewed the what skills: observe, describe, and participate, and we did some exercises for that. We did, in the second hour, Em did how skills. So how do you do mindfulness? How do you observe? How do you describe? How do you participate? And she talked about non-judgmentally, so just the facts. She talked about one mindfully and staying focused and doing one thing at a time and not multitasking and just slowing down and focusing your attention completely on what it is you're doing. There are a few really groovy examples about one mindfully. There was the example about the dot to dot, for example. Just when you do get distracted, noticing where you go, and the skill is then bringing yourself back. So it's kind of, the point is our minds will distract us, and if we can get skillful at bringing ourselves back, we can fully participate in the moment. We can get things done. We can train our attention to focus on what we need it to focus on, what we think is effective to focus on. So if you're getting through a crisis, for example, and you're trying to, you're using a distraction technique, you're using self-soothe, you're using skills to improve the situation. You need to know when your mind's gone, so you can bring it back to what it is you're doing to get through the crisis skillfully, for example. So really useful skill, one mindfully, stay focused, and effectively do at work. So know what your goal is and be pragmatic. Do what you think is required of you in this situation, not what you should do or shouldn't do, what other people should have done or shouldn't have done, but what you think you believe is effective to do in this situation. What's going to get it done for you? What the most useful approach is in this situation? What's called for in this situation? So that's effectively. So an example of non-judgmentally is that in certain situations I might get some I think the example in group tonight was don't be an arsehole to yourself. I thought that was really cool. So it's kind of like noticing when you are getting that thinking about yourself or about your future or about other people, for example, and kind of going, oh, I just noticed the thought that things aren't going to get better. And instead of doing that, just describing. So it might be, oh, I've noticed that I'm feeling that it's really difficult. Aspects of the treatment are really challenging, for example, and as a result, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by it. Compared to, this is too hard, it's not going to work, I'm not better yet. They're judgments, as opposed to description. And with description, you've got room to move. You could then, in that situation, kind of talk to your individual therapist and say, hey, look, I just don't get that particular skill, or I can't get that skill going, or it doesn't seem to work in this situation, I'm not sure why, or I'm feeling really overwhelmed about everything that we're learning. And then that's a really useful and understandable description. And that opens up possibility, opens up a conversation, clarification, and potentially getting help, rather than shutting it down. So staying focused, again, the example about just bringing your mind back, noticing where you go, and then bring your mind back to it. And effectively, Sometimes effectively is just kind of like, I don't really feel like going to group, for example, but you're kind of like, well, the effective thing to do is to kind of rock up. That's the effective thing to do. That's just what's required of me at the moment. I've got to show up. This is hard and tricky, especially initially. Um, and showing up is the effective thing to do, and participating as best as I can. Um, so yeah, the how skills are non-judgmentally, one, mindfully or stay focused, and effectively do what works. What's going to work in this situation with my eye on my long-term goals. If I do that, it might work in the short term, but in the long term, it takes me away from what I really want. So I might say and do things um, in a situation with someone um, that may or may not be effective. So if I'm really angry at someone, I might give them a spray or have a go at them in the short term because of the anger. But effectively, it's kind of like, well, this is an important person to me. I don't kind of want to let them have it. It's not going to be useful because the relationship's important to me. So the effective thing to do is to gently avoid, stay as calm as I can, and then come back to the situation if I think it's wise, and go back and kind of ask for what I want, or give my opinion, or something that I can do uh, that is not going to be determined purely by the intensity of my anger in that situation. So that's the review. It's a real quick one. Well done. And the participation tonight was spot on from everyone. So let's just keep participating and do the practice. So the practice was um, the what and how skills homework sheet. Um, and see you next week. Well done, champions.